Hi, I'm Sean Eli from the Ivy League of Comedy with some expert advice on how to hire a comedian for your corporate or industry event, charity fundraiser, or private organization like an alumni group or country club. The first consideration, whom are you talking to? Are you talking to the comedian directly, their legitimate talent agent, or a third party? And this matters, that's why I'm addressing it first. Legitimate talent agencies are regulated, they're required to act in the comedian's best interests, and they're limited to taking 10%. But there are lots of people out there who want you to think they're a comedian's agent when they're not. They'll use phrases like booking agent, but they don't have an exclusive contract with the talent. They work for themselves. They may keep half the money you're paying for talent. There are plenty of stories of famous comedians who, before they were well known, got paid $500 for a gig, only to find out that the client was being charged $5,000. And these booking agents are all over the internet, advertising and using search engine techniques so they show up high in a Google search. Now, there are some advantages in using a third party if they're at least reasonably honest and not too greedy. If they know the comedians and their material, they may suggest that the one you're interested in isn't the best fit for your group. And also, if the comedian gets sick the morning of your event, they should be able to find a substitute if travel isn't too complicated. If you go directly to a comedian, you don't have that option. Okay, so what is your event? A corporate or industry event? A fundraising comedy show for a charity? Or just a fun show for a country club? Either way, should the comedian be clean and not offensive? The answer to this should be yes. Even if 90% of the audience is fine with dirty material, that leaves 10% unhappy. And that's not a great reflection on your organization. But most stand-up comedians can't even do a solid, clean half hour because we started and mostly work in comedy clubs where it's not necessary. And it's a lot easier to write dirty or shock material than clean, clever comedy that you deserve. But a clean comedy show is at least every bit as funny as a dirty show if you have the right comic. So how long should the presentation be? For a corporate event, a half hour or even 20 minutes is sufficient because your attendees have probably already been sitting in meetings all day listening to other people talk. For a full comedy show like a fundraiser or a private event, a typical show is 2 to 3 comedians and 75 to 90 minutes. More comedians doesn't make for a funnier show, but it's nice to have different viewpoints, backgrounds, topics, and styles. Or, depending on your budget, maybe only one comedian for 45 minutes to an hour, and that would be sufficient. Let's talk about topics. You don't need custom material for your group. A skilled comedian should have material on a wide variety of subjects. And if they open their show talking about something related to your group, and towards the end they fit in some more material about it, the audience will leave thinking the whole show was about them. If you do want them to write custom material for your group, and not just steal someone else's jokes or tell old jokes, be prepared to pay for it. Because writing new material on a specific topic takes work. Are there topics to be avoided? You need to let the comedian know this when you first talk to them, not when they show up for a show. A decade ago, I did a show for a synagogue. I had new material on driving that I wanted to use. When I showed up, they told me the congregation was sad because a beloved member had just died in an auto crash. I'm glad they told me, and I cut all the jokes about driving from my set. Now, obviously, in that case, they couldn't tell me in advance. But if your CEO's spouse just died of cancer, you don't want a comedian telling cancer or smoking jokes, and you do know this in advance. If you're working with a third party, I suggest checking references. And my personal suggestion, beware of testimonials that are anonymous. Joseph R. of Akron, Ohio, may have great things to say, but why isn't he letting them use his full name? Watch the comedians' videos. Do you think their style will work for your group? But keep in mind, there are plenty of comics who put together 5 good, solid, clean minutes for network TV, but they can't do a clean half hour. Feel free to ask for more. A few years ago, a corporate group hired Sarah Silverman. They were not happy. They said she was too dirty and also didn't do the full half hour they'd paid for. She said, "You hired Sarah Silverman. What did you think you were getting?" And she also produced evidence that she did perform for more than 30 minutes because she recorded her set. Now, this happens too often, and the fault is on both sides. Be sure to set guidelines in advance. Now, a good corporate comic should know to ask. But when it's someone as famous as Sarah Silverman, well, she probably figured they knew what sort of material she did. Now, note this. The comedian doesn't have to match the demographics of your group. If your group is mostly male factory workers in their 30s, that's who they're with all day. Give them something different. I get asked all the time as a booker for Jewish comedians for Jewish events. And I say you just need great comics. They don't need to be all Jewish, and they probably shouldn't be. Add some variety. Let them hear about other people's family issues. According to my Italian-American colleagues, same issues, better food. A good corporate comedian or their representative should have a checklist of things to ask you, like about the room setup, questions about the event. Do you have a sound system? And you need one. Some comics can bring one, but we're not going to until you request it because we assume that you provide that. And let's talk about clothing, because comedy clubs have no dress code. You don't want a comedian showing up at your corporate event in a t-shirt that says "Got Coke" with a photo of a nose and wearing a backwards baseball cap when your audience is in suits or business casual. Or even worse, showing up in a Yankees cap at a show in Boston. I believe in dressing well on stage. Let me pull back and show you. This is typically how I dress for a show. In fact, tonight I have 2 shows at a comedy club. Now, if you ask me to wear a suit and tie, or even a tuxedo, I can accommodate that. I prefer not wearing a tie if I don't have to, but I have 50 of them. Now, I've learned audiences treat comedians better when we're better dressed, and I don't know why most of my colleagues have not figured this out. Even wearing shoes and a polo shirt gets more respect than sneakers and a t-shirt. I'm happy to speak to you about performing at your event or helping you select a different comedian. I work regularly with several dozen great comedians. I know their backgrounds, their material, their strengths, their weaknesses, their individual styles. And I won't keep half the money for myself, maybe 10%, which I will earn by working with you to make your event as great as it deserves to be. I will take care of details. I will take care of the logistics. And comedians prefer to have a middleman like me. And in fact, they may work less expensively for me because they know I've taken care of the details, they know they're going to get paid, and they know the logistics are taken care of, and I give them a lot of work. There's a lot more about how to hire a comedian on my website, brainchampagne.com. There's also many of my videos. Thanks for listening. It's rare that I talk this long without making anybody laugh. I promise I'm funny on stage. You want proof? Go to my website, brainchampagne.com, and watch some videos. I'm Sean Eli. Thank you very much.